Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy from the Fairborn Library, and welcome to Haunted or Historic Homes. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so haunted or historic homes. This is just a basic introduction on how to begin the research of your house to either get on the National Registry or to find out who once lived in your house. There's a lot of people out there who want to know, like, when their house was built, who lived there before them, what happened. Was it part of a farm? Did my house get moved? Was I part of Fairfield or Old Osborne? This is a good place to start. Biggest thing is don't reinvent the wheel. Go ahead and look and do a little research to see if a lot of this has already been done for you. Check with the National Register of Historical Places to see if your house is already on the list, or look for an abstract of title. These were reports title insurance companies used to create before issuing home insurance when you purchased your home. They're getting away from doing that now, so they're a little harder to find. But if you check with a realtor, you may be able to find one of these from further back in time. If you couldn't find either one of these, the best thing to do is create a chain of deeds. This is basically a running list of who owned your house, when it was purchased, when it changed hands, and any changes that happened to your property along the way. First and easiest step is to identify the style of building. This will help you identify when the house was built, so you know how far back to look for records, when to look for records, and what records were available. These are just a few basic styles of houses. There are tons of these, and a lot of them have been redone over the years as well. There's a great website right here at the bottom of the screen. Check it out if you want to learn more about what the houses were, what makes them Gothic Revival or New England Colonial, and how to identify those. Step number 2 is to make a map. I know this sounds silly and like a waste of time, but it'll help, especially as you get further back in time when the property may not have been the same size that it is now. You may have been divided, your lots may have been divided from a farm or a larger plat or anything like that. So take time to look for a map. I would start with the auditor's office of your county. They typically have the current maps and property boundaries on the GIS maps. Check that out and you can show you the actual outline of your property so you know exactly where you're starting at. There is usually a legal description of the property, how long it is, how deep it is, latitude, longitude. Sometimes it's from the big tree to the big rock, which over time gets less and less helpful. Make sure you have a physical description so you have an idea at least of how big the lot was, whether it was 5 acres or 65 feet or something like that. This is a good place to start at. As I said, start with the current map. You can always go back and look at historical maps as you discover more information. Some good places to start looking, especially for older maps, are the Sanborn maps, which you can get on our website through the Greene County room, Google Earth, Google Maps, plat maps, and plat books. Check your libraries to see if they have copies of these. If not, the recorder's office or the auditor's office may have copies of these. History Pen, David Rumsey's, and History Geo are all their websites you can check out. The History Geo does require a subscription, but if this is something you're really into, it may be worth it for you. Here's an example of one of the Sanborn maps. Basically, what you can do is you can see what property you're looking at. So let's say we're looking at the one with the star right here. You can see it's at the corner of Elm and Walnut, and it tells you here how long this lot is. So you'd know exactly where your lot began and how far it was. My guess at some point in time, this was all probably put together into one big lot. I could be totally wrong. And then divided up later on, just based on the shapes of some of these lots. Again, it's a good place to start. This one's from 1937. A lot of these go back 10 years, so you can see how the lots have changed just in a few decades. Again, start there. It's the beginning. You can always adjust from there. Since the early days of the United States, people have been keeping track of property. So there's a lot of records of who owned what, when it when it changed hands, who changed hands to, how much it changed hands for. Those types of things have been very well documented. Hopefully that hasn't been burned up in a fire when courthouses have burned, but there's a chance you'll find some records about it. When you're doing your chain of ownership, it's always important to make sure you notice things like when buildings were added, when lots were split up, when properties were divided into tracts, when the tracts were sold individually versus all together, when lots were broken up that way, who it changed hands to, if it went from a husband to a wife or parents to children, that could indicate something had happened. Make sure you're finding the records that are specific for your research. If you're looking for getting on the historic registry of homes, you need to make sure you have the documentation they require. It's very specific. They go through everything with you on your application. Make sure you have what you need. If you're looking into who owned your house, this stuff is a good place to start getting and collecting the names of people who are involved in your property. Each county keeps their records in different places, so you'll need to check with each individual county to see where the records are. Google's the best place to start with that. You can just do a simple search for where are deeds kept in Greene County, Ohio, and you'll get the recorder's office. It could be the auditor's office. It could be called something totally different in different states and in different counties. Just do a quick search, you'll be able to find it. These are types of documents that you'll be looking for: deeds, bills of sales, liens, mortgages, wills, tax records, permits. All of those have information about who owned the property and when changes were made to it. Here is the Greene County's website, the recorder's office, and this gives you a list of the documents that they have. So you can go ahead and do a document search, and find the information that you're looking for. Some places have digitized quite a few of their records, others have not. Like for example, with Greene County, if you're looking to anything prior to 1984, you have to use these indexes. You can't just do a simple search with a name because they haven't been digitized that way. That being said, some places also don't have anything digitized, so you'd have to go in. Right now with COVID, that makes it a little difficult, but it's not impossible to do. Contact them, explain what you're doing, and they'll help you figure out a way to either come in and visit or get you the information that you need. Typically, the auditor's office here in Ohio has the physical descriptions of your property. You can research the property online, especially if it's a newer property or it's changed hands multiple times recently, later than the 80s typically. You can find a lot of information about who owned it and when the property changed hands. Some auditors' offices in other counties, I know out of state, they require you to actually physically come in to do the search or call them. You can't search online. So again, check out with the auditors, see what you're able to get online and see what you'll have to do in person. The recorders usually keep all of the deeds. Some are accessible online, some are not, just depending on what's been digitized and how organized they have made that. This is an example of a deed for one of the properties that I was looking at. I'm going to point out a couple of things that are important that you'll want to include in your chain of deeds. I have the grantee. This is the person selling the property. Right here, John H. Blake. Margaret D. Blake is the grantor. She's the person buying it. This is the deed, the volume, and the page number. This is how they're organized in a book. So if you'll do a search, it may ask for volume and page. This is what they're looking for. Then as you look down here a little bit further, it has tract 1. This one I only cut out parts of it because it's a very long document and very small. So I had to zoom in and it wouldn't all fit on a slide. So this is just giving you a brief description here of the tract 1. It gives you which way the roads run, the degrees north and west, how long it went for, how many acres, all of that kind of stuff. So that's your physical description. So right there has 4 key things that you need to know about your property. Do you have the right property? That's the physical description. Who bought the property? Grantor. Who sold the property? Grantee. What volume and page number? What's the document number? You keep reading down it, it has all the other tracts. blah, 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 blah. And then down here towards the bottom, it has, this is the same property that the grantor, the person who's selling it now, bought from this Carol Motts in 1944. And here is the volume and page number of that deed. So what you can do is you can go from, oh, sorry, let me go back. Go back from John Blake. So Margaret brought it from John. John bought the property from Carol. And then you would go look up this volume and deed page number and find out who Carol bought it from. Then at the bottom of her deed, it'll have a list of who that person bought it from. And that's how you build your chain. Going back person to person, time to time, deed by deed. Now that you have your chain established, you can go through and start looking at the people. If you're doing historical research, just get on the registry, you may be able to stop there and just go ahead and submit your information. If you want to learn about the people of your house to know if it was haunted, you'll want to continue your research. To take up all of those names that you've gathered and start doing some basic searches. You can go to Ancestry, which is free through the Greene County Library. You can do family search. You can check out census records, obituaries. Newspaper articles are going to be very helpful because they tell you what was going on at the time. You can find out if there was a fire, if there was somebody who passed away, when they passed away. All of these types of, not documents, but places to get information are going to be very helpful for you. Directories, mortgages, court records, all of permits, all of that will give you more information about the people and the lives they led. For example, here's John Blake. I went to Ancestry through Greene County and I was able to find marriage records for them, probate records, census records, all kinds of information to go back through and look at to kind of build a history of John, to know what happened in his life, to see if there was any reason he might be haunting this house. Going back further in time, land was given as compensation for military service. They were either given as patents or land grants. And there was also the Homestead Act where you could travel out west, get so many acres, live there for so many years, improve it. You got to keep it, didn't have to pay any money. All that stuff has been documented. There's federal and state level. So be sure to check both of those out. And I have listed here some places you can look at those records. This is just a list of important terms that you'll need to know that I came across while I was learning how to do this. Over on the left-hand column over here, these are different types of building vocabulary, structural vocabulary that you'll need to know when you're trying to identify the type of house that you have. On this side, we have deeds and the different types of them, what it meant to be a farm, grantor, grantee, intestate, that means you die without a will. It's a very important word. Liens, plats, probates, all of those kinds of things which you'll come across as you're reading your deeds and doing your research. Here's a list of some other resources that can come in handy while you're doing this. And hopefully this will get you guys started on your research so you can find out some good information and maybe dig up some fascinating facts on your property. That is about it for how to begin your research. Again, this was just a quick overview, how to get started, where to start looking, and hopefully you guys will find some juicy details and you'll be willing to come in and let us know how it went. Good luck in your research.